want to recognize, the Safety Curiously supporter that take part in the session and, support the post and comment on the post on LinkedIn. Because without you, this session would not exist. This session is purely voluntary. As you probably know, I do that in my spare time because I share this passion for safety and I really enjoy, learning and working with other safety professionals so that we can make things better and safer for everybody. So let me recognize the first person today. So thank you, Diane. You joined the Safety Curiously group 3 or 4 months ago. You've attended every session and every time you contributed and put some really good comment on LinkedIn. So thank you, Diane, for being with us today.
Thank you.
And the second, you there, Diane? Yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent. And the second one, I think this one is quite special. As you will see, normally it's one member. In this case, we've got the full family. Yeah! Amazingly cute. Amazingly cute. So thank you for that. And the topic for today is Todd Conklin. So who knows Todd Conklin? If you can raise your hand. Yeah. Good. So Todd is probably I think he's the most effective safety presenter. It's just amazing. He can present for, he's done some presentation of 2 hours and in front of thousands of people, and people get engaged, they get excited, and the most important thing, they remember the message, which is key in safety. So if you think that, Todd is effective, he's using a lot of stand-up comedy techniques. And, so does it pay to apply these techniques in stand-up comedy? That's a question for us. And let me give you an answer. This is, as you can see, this is the fee that Todd charges for an hour of live presentation on safety. So as you can see, applying a few stand-up comedy techniques can really improve the quality of your safety presentation. Okay, pretty amazing. All real stuff. And now we're going to start with Steve. Steve applies stand-up comedy techniques. So I'm going to share with you a short video clips of Steve in action, and then Steve will introduce himself.
Do you know what? I've just noticed, Josh, that because I'm standing up here looking at everybody, the handsomeness levels are through the bloody roof. Everybody looks amazing. There's Tim with his moustache. Let's get like I'm starting to feel a bit inadequate round about you. Right? But it's almost like you've brought the sizzle to safety and the sort of the bang to the book club, right? So this is going to be amazing. I can feel it in my bones, right? We've got some really good stuff on the go. But these guys here, they're absolute friends of ours. They need no introduction, but they're bloody getting one, right? The dynamic duo, the Batman and Robin.
You are Batman.
The Lennon and McCartney of learning. And the Bert and Ernie of playing.
Okay, good. So you got to feel so. Now I think we're all online. I've just shot the presentation, and it'd be good for Steve to introduce yourself and just tell us about what you do and maybe some comments on the short video clip that we've seen.
Yeah, thank you, Urbane, and thank you for this opportunity. Guys, you could probably tell from my accent, I'm not from Australia, but I'm probably what you would class as a Scottish Australian now because I've been here like 20 years, so a significant long time. I work for a company called Origin Energy, which is an oil and gas company based here in Australia. And look, that is I run a book club in Brisbane, but it's not really a book club. There's a couple of people on the call who come along. It's more me getting to exercise a bit of humour and having a bit of a laugh, and look, and really telling stories, and I bring along some really quite famous authors into this, and then it, like I say, it gives me an opportunity to take the mickey out of them for an hour. But it works really well for us. It's really great. I really love doing it. The stand-up comedy stuff, look, it's the most terrifying thing I've ever done. I have to be totally honest, but I love it. So yeah, I'm back. I've entered a competition next year in Brisbane, so keep an eye out for me. And yeah, we'll see how we go. But again, thank you, Urbane, for the opportunity.
Good. And do you want to just quickly tell us which technique you use in this short video clip?
Yeah, well, look, in the beginning there, you might have noticed how much I complimented how handsome everybody was. And that is definitely a good way to compliment the crowd. Jordan, who's on the call, he was at one of a workshop we ran the other day in the office, and I commented on how attractive he was because of his moustache. So complimenting the crowd and letting them know that they're going to have a good night was definitely something that I used there. And another little technique that I used with was the rule of three. You might have noticed I used like the Lennon and McCartney of learning, the Bert and Ernie of blame, and the Batman and Robin of resilience. So that we call that the rule of three. I don't know, Chris. I don't know how much you thought of that one, but for me that was like it got a really great laugh, and people loved the imagery as well. So that's a couple of the techniques that I try and use whenever I sort of talk about safety and work.
Thank you. So let me share, a video clip. Hopefully you can see my screen. Yeah. So it's a technique I use. This is what was recorded last week. I was in the Middle East. I recorded this clip in the Middle East, and this is really I've used the Who Done It. I mean, some of you are familiar with this clip. It's quite an old one, but I've repackaged it using stand-up comedy techniques. So instead of people watching these 30-second clips from start to finish, I set it up. I ask people whether they tell their team to be careful, and I just raise the pressure. Then I show them the clip, and then I ask them any changes they've seen. So you can see that in action. Let me share this video clip with you. Hopefully I'll go on full screen. I'm going to ask you to be careful today. Do you ask your team to be careful? Yeah? In your meeting in the morning? Yes? Yes? You ask them to be careful. Excellent. Excellent. So I'm going to ask you to lead by example today, and I'm going to ask you to be careful. So you're all safety leaders. So are you ready? Yes. Are you ready to be careful? Yes. Yes. So here we go. I'm going to test you. I'm going to test how careful you are. So this is an observation test. Yeah? Ready? So you're going to watch a short video, and I'm going to ask you to note the number of unexpected changes, things that don't look right in this video, changes that are not normal or expected. And it's a very short video. It's 2 minutes. So you told me that you're going to be careful. So I'm trusting you guys, okay? So be careful and watch the video. How many unexpected changes did you notice in this video?
One.
One?
One.
One? Anybody notice?
One.
One?
Yeah.
Really? Only one?
No, two.
Two?
No, I get two.
Two? Anybody saw more than two changes? No? Two. Okay, let's check.
No, we were not prepared.
21. So what's the learning? Think about it. In the morning, you tell your shift, your team to be careful. You told me that, okay? And you're not asking them to be careful for 2 minutes. You're asking them to be careful for 10 hours. Okay? So what do you think? What do you expect? Exactly. If you, as leader, you cannot be careful for 2 minutes, how can you expect them to be careful for 10 hours? Okay, so that's the as you see, I've used the stand-up comedy techniques to make the point that being careful is not enough, and that you need to have the right control, the right system, and the right culture in place to be safe. So that's it worked really well. Again, another application of stand-up comedy techniques. Good. Now it's the time to introduce Chris. So let's start with an introduction, and then we can talk about your books.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So Chris Head, as Urbain has said, I work with stand-up comedians. I'm working today, later on, directing a comedian in a show that's going to Edinburgh, Edinburgh Festival in the UK. But I also go into corporate contexts and help people with their speaking and presenting, because there are so many crossover techniques. And I just wanted to pick up on a couple of things that we've seen from Steve and Urbain. So if we're thinking Todd Conklin is the #1 health and safety speaker, I think we've got the #2 and 3 here. But I won't say if Steve or Urbain are 2 or 3. I'll let you decide. But we're talking about the top 3. So now, what Steve was doing, as he said, was being very positive about the people there, and Steve did it in this very playful way. And what was nice about what Steve was doing is he was referring to how people looked, and you might comment on what someone's wearing, but as soon as you tell the audience, "I can see you," then they're more involved. Now, that might sound a slightly odd thing to say, because of course you can see them, but a lot of people present in a way that the audience might as well not be there. They're just doing a speech. So as soon as you reflect back to them and go, "Oh, you're doing this, or I like what you're wearing there, or thank you for coming, I can see you." And the other thing that you can do with those kind of compliments is it's really smart to say things like, "Well, it's really great to have such an attentive group here today. I think this is going to be good. Or you look really up for it. This is great." And the trick is to say that whatever, even if you're feeling like, "Oh, they're not very interested. They're looking at their phones. They're looking out the window." Just go, "You've got a really attentive group. I can see you're up for it." They're not going to go, "No, we're not. We're not interested." They're going to go, "Yeah, no, we are actually." And this comes from comparing when you host a show in stand-up. There's a famous compere called Jeff Whiting, who's compared literally over 3,000 shows. And he said to me once that the audience become what you tell them they are. So even if an audience looks totally miserable, like they're going to heckle, like it's going to be horrible, he goes out and goes, "I've heard great things about this club. You look like a great audience. We're going to have a cracking night." And he said some compares, to get a laugh, will go, "Oh, you look like a miserable bunch. Why don't you cheer up? Oh my God, come to a comedy club, sit here looking miserable as sin." It gets a laugh, but you're actually reinforcing that. So he goes the opposite way. And just make that a habit. Whether I'm hosting a show, which I do sometimes, or more commonly when I'm doing a workshop, at the start, I'll just say what a great group they are and how up for it they look, whether they do or not, because then they start to come on board. And the other thing that we saw Steve and Urbain doing in those clips is they brought some energy to it. And it makes such a difference to come on and actually project your voice, have some energy, and just speak a bit more loudly, and you have a bit more presence. And the other thing they were doing is, both of those clips we saw, they were very conversational, constantly bringing people in, asking things, making it very chatty. So it's the complete opposite of a speech. And all of these things, they come from stand up, but they're also just good presenting and good speaking tips as well. So I wanted to reflect on the clips that we've already seen, and then Bam's very kindly going to do some book plugs. So I'll hand back to you for that.
Yeah. Okay. Let me. So, first book, second book, and third book. You want to talk about the third book, Chris?
Yeah. So what we have there is rule of three. So we saw a rule of three from Steve earlier, and in Steve's rule of three, it was three funny things. And I call that the small, medium, large rule of three, in that the first one is already amusing, the second one pushes it a bit more, and the third one pushes it even further. So you've got small, medium, large. And three is a sweet spot for that kind of thing. We love things that come in threes as humans. So if you're looking for three examples of a thing, and it doesn't have to be funny. If you're looking for examples of bad health and safety practice, you'll just know in your bones that three is a good rhythm. And the way to organize that is small, medium, large. You start off with the milder example, then the intermediate, and then the most extreme. So it's building, and you're keeping your audience's attention. Now, something like that might sound obvious or natural, but it's kind of easy to get it wrong. If you've got three examples of a thing, often people will just come in at the top and have the most extreme one, and then they'll peter out over the next two. So having a sense of them building over the three, whether it's a ha-ha thing or an aha thing, whether you're trying to get a laugh or you're trying to make a point, that small, medium, large three, that's good. But we had a different kind of three here. We had establish, reinforce, surprise. And so the first two are books that I actually have written. And then, so, of course, you're now expecting the third one to be another book that I've written. But it turns out to be this made up book about safety, really nicely designed in the same style as my actual books. In fact, it's making me think I probably need to now go away and write this book. Mark has raised a hand. Do you want to come in? You're going to ask a question, Mark? Oh, okay. I'll definitely have to do it now. Okay.
Maybe there's some demand for it, Chris, you see.
Yeah, that's right. Note to self, make sure you've written the book that's going to be plugged in the session, because you're missing sales plugging non-existent books. But so the rule of three, establish, reinforce, surprise. I always think of that as Monday, Tuesday, banana. And the reason why it's three is 2 is the minimum you need to create a pattern. So if you go Monday, banana, it's not enough. But Monday, Tuesday is enough to give you an expectation of what's coming next, and then you can surprise them. Now you might go, why isn't it rule of 4 or 5 or something? Well, you don't need Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, banana. 2 does the job. So that's establish, reinforce, surprise. And it's a really good way of getting a laugh. If you want to laugh early in your presentation, you could say, 3 important things we're going to be learning today are: first one, normal, what they'd expect; second one, normal, what they'd expect; third one, curveball, a surprising thing that's a bit playful, and you've got to laugh, and it's a rule of 3.
Perfect. Good. So today we're going to look at Todd Conklin style, because as I said, he's a master of stand-up comedy techniques. And we're going to look at a video that you can, you got the reference here and you can find it on YouTube. It's an amazing video. I don't know, I can't remember how many views it's got for a safety video, but it's probably the most watched safety video on the net. And you will see why. This is really an amazing presentation. So let's get started.
Okay, can everyone see me? What if I stand like this? Is it like a knife blade? So before we get started, I don't want to put any pressure on you, but I kind of feel like this is going to be the best presentation I've ever given, because I got a sign. So yesterday, I couldn't be here earlier because I had to teach a class yesterday. So I'm teaching a class. It's a room full of operators, It's not the best class ever. That's you guys. It's like maybe the second or third best class. And in the middle of class, this guy sitting kind of in the middle of the room, his phone starts ringing. And I should tell you that doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I'm always kind of glad it's their phone and not my phone, so I don't give a crap, right? But the poor guy, he looks horrified because his phone's ringing and I'm looking at him and he's looking at me and I'm looking back at him, and I think, I don't think he knows what to do. So I just said really casually, kind of cool, I said, if you need to get that phone, you can. And the guy looks visibly relieved. Only problem is, he then actually answers the phone and takes the call in the middle of the class, in the middle of the room. And it's my fault, right? So he picks up the phone and he goes, yeah, which I believe is how you guys say good morning. Am I translating that correctly? Is that right? Then there's a long pause and he goes, I'm in training. And then there's a pause and he says, it's all day. And that one had a blade in it. I felt that one hit me pretty hard. And then he says the most amazing thing. This is totally true, you guys. He says, doesn't suck as much as I thought it would. So if you're cool with this, I'd kind of like make that the standard. This is going to suck, but it's not going to suck nearly as bad as it could suck.
All right. So I think a bit of audience participation just now. It'd be good to hear from you. What techniques or what are your reflection on this short video clip? So don't be shy, just any thought about some of the techniques and tricks used by Todd. Kate, you're smiling, so I'm going to put you on the spot.
Well, he kind of complimented the audience, didn't he? Because he said that they were going to be like, this was going to be his best show. So I kind of think he was getting them on board straight away.
It's good. Yeah, same technique as used by Steve. Yes, very good. Any other point?
He was very funny.
I liked the self-depreciation. I thought that was really good. I mean, he stands up, can you see me? And it gives a side view. The and he said it's going to be the best performance he's ever done. And he's also really self-deprecating. So I think those two things make you immediately think,
Very good. So, Chris, I'll let you comment. What techniques did you see in this short clip?
Well, a couple of good observations from Kate and Tom, but both of those things spot on. So the point that he wants to make is health and safety, particularly an hour-long presentation of it, is not usually considered like it's going to be the most fun thing. And so he wants to acknowledge that and then say you might be surprised, so he's got this point to make. He could have just said that. Instead, he puts it into a story. And so thinking about what point is it I want to make and how could I get it across in a story, that really brings it to life in a different way. And something else I want to suggest is I bet a small amount of money, but I bet that didn't happen. I bet it didn't happen like that. Now, what I think, if I was going to speculate, I reckon in the break or after the session, the guy came up to him and said, "Oh, that was great, Todd. That didn't suck as much as I thought it would." And he thought, that's such a what a lovely, weird kind of compliment, but great. I see where he's coming from. Oh, that's a funny phrase. So rather than just going, "Oh, this guy came up to me after a session and said, oh, didn't suck as much as I thought it would." I mean, he could say that and they'd still kind of chuckle and go, "Oh, right." But he puts it into this whole scenario, and he may well be combining a couple of things because it's quite, relatable, the idea of someone's phone going off. And so I think he's bringing some different elements together to make a story. Now, what he does is he says this happened yesterday. But I think once he thought of this story, he's going to start every presentation with this. And I think he's probably going to use this story for years. I wouldn't be surprised if he uses it hundreds of times. But every time he tells a story, it's always going to be yesterday. so that's a trick with stand-up. It's the immediacy of it, but it also makes it seem more casual. It's on your mind, rather than going, 2 years ago I did this session. It's like, well, blimey, okay, this is pretty big. What happened 2 years ago? It's like, well, yesterday. It's got that casualness, and the comedian's always casual. You don't want to look like you're trying too hard. That's a really key thing. Now, in terms of how he brings this story to life, he's really back in the situation. He doesn't say things like, at this point, I said to the gentleman that it would be okay for him to answer his phone. He goes, okay, you can take the call. He's in the situation and he's actually acting it out. And he doesn't say to them, and then the guy answered his phone and he explained to the person on the other end that he was in training all day, which he said kind of sucked. Goes, yeah, I'm in training all day, which kind of sucks. So he's actually acting it out. He's bringing it to life. And crucially, he knows what the story is ending on. He knows what the whole thing is building up to. So that's the most important thing, really, if you're going to tell a story, is what is the last line of this story? What is the final thing that you're going to say? And really know that. A comedian, some comedians are a bit more loose and they're kind of paraphrasing. Some comedians are really saying things word for word exactly as they'd planned, but it still looks loose. In training, obviously, you're not going to learn a script and then say it. So it is going to be a bit more loose and paraphrased, but you know the beats of it, you know how it unfolds, but it's really important to know how it finishes the story. And I would say literally learn that line that it finishes on so that you can hit that final line, pause for them to digest it, and then move on. Otherwise, you're in danger of it petering out. And his final line, he says that, so that's the expectation for today. This is going to suck, but not as much as you feared. Whereas a lot of people, they'll have a story, but they let it peter out. They'll get to the end of the story and go, so yeah, well, that happened yesterday, and I thought I'd share that because, well, it's probably worth sort of sets to the context. Anyway, let's move on. So having a crisp finish, that's your best friend, really. You know what it's building up to.
Good. So let's. Okay, so we've done that. Let's watch another clip.
When Volvo says they're going to make a fatality-free car, they're not saying they're going to make a car that won't wreck. In fact, you guys, they're actually saying we're going to make a car that we know is going to wreck. Somebody somewhere is going to run it off a bridge or hit a tree or roll it or smack into a truck. When it happens, we want that car to have the capacity so that when it fails, the occupants of that vehicle can live to drive another day. Actually, I'm pretty sure what they say is live to buy another Volvo. We can talk about that later, right?
Okay.
When Volvo says...
Yeah, good. Let me share. So again, any reflection on this clip? What techniques did you see? I know, Philippa, you've been quiet today. Normally, you're very engaged.
Sorry for that. I don't know. I don't know what I'm learning the techniques as we're dissecting them. So I don't know. I could see more from the other one. Yeah, it was funny. It was definitely relevant for people. He made it safety specific, even though there was that commercial turn to it at the end as well. But yeah, I'm trying to learn the techniques, which I'm finding it really interesting. So I don't have anything else to say for now. Sorry, Urbain.
No, that's good. That's good. We're all here to learn together. Anybody else got any? Yeah, Gareth. Maybe Gareth first. Go ahead, Gareth. Okay, so I think we lost. Yeah, go ahead, Gareth. Are you there? Okay, Mark, I think Mark wanted to contribute as well. Yeah, a serious topic. It's a serious topic. You made it funny. The other thing that you may have noticed is, the unexpected end. Okay, so in comedy, you set people in one direction, so they expect something, and what you do at the end is you give them something different. This is the principle of a joke. Okay, so like in this case, it's talking about safeties, and it's finishing on, and they hope that people will buy another Volvo. Okay, so this is the surprise that you get in a joke. So Chris, I'll let you expand on this setup and payoff principle.
Yeah. So, I mean, you all know this rhythm. It's the joke rhythm. You prepare the ground, you make a statement, and then you turn it on its head or surprise us in some way. So it's the setup and the payoff. And as has been pointed out, he's talking about something really serious, and then he switches to kind of, it's life and death, and then it's kind of cynical commercial opportunity. So it's that sudden change of perspective that's really part of a joke as well. But so something I want to point out about this joke is, so Todd does a lot of jokes in this presentation. I mean, he's remarkably good at making jokes and making the audience laugh. But the nature of the joke here is it's what I'd call an afterthought. Now, this is quite a subtle distinction, so bear with me, but it's worth thinking about in terms of presenting. So by which I mean the stuff that he said about Volvo, that's worth saying. And then the afterthought is like this little bonus that made the audience laugh. So point being, well, there's a few points, but first of all, I suspect one day he ad-libbed that. One day it occurred to him, and then from then after he just kept it in. Thought, oh, that was a good joke. That made them laugh. I'll say that again next time. And comedians do that all the time. It's writing on stage. But this afterthought, so this point that what he said was worth saying anyway, and then he added a little bonus thing. Most jokes, the only reason why you're saying the preamble is to get to the funny bit. And if it's not funny, there's no point in saying it, Now, the reason why this is sort of relevant in presenting is it's quite good to think about sort of funny moments and jokes as being of that afterthought nature. Because to be funny in a presentation or in a corporate context, it's got to feel right. You've got to feel like, yeah, I want to do this. You feel a bit playful. You feel relaxed. The audience have got to be in the right space. You've got a sense this is a good moment for a joke. And if it isn't, don't say it. And so the point of it being an afterthought, like it's a bit of garnish or a little bonus, is when it feels right, you say it and you get a laugh. And when it doesn't feel right, you don't say it, and nobody's lost anything, and they don't even realize there should have been a joke there. Whereas if you do the kind of joke, a horse walks into a bar, and goes up to the barman and discovers the barman's a raccoon, and you're doing that, and then there's no funny bit on the end. There's no point in saying all of that. So, so that's the difference. And I think that's humor's so valuable in a presentation of sweetening the pill, keeping people's attention, getting people to like you, making connections, making things more memorable. And it's got to feel right. You've got to feel comfortable. And afterthoughts, they're optional. It feels right. I'm going to put this in today. Oh, today it doesn't so much. I'm just going to gloss over the fact there could have been a joke there.
Very good. Let's watch. So we talked about, do you want us to, let's watch another clip. Yeah, it's be better.
But I'm not done. My whole life's work is about this next button. And Mike started today in a moment of silence for 3 workers. What scares the crap out of me is this. Really good organizations kill people.
Okay, so maybe some reflection on this one, Chris. And
Yeah. So what I mean, say Todd here is talking in a it's a very high stakes context in that these are union members, you know, who are working in manufacturing jobs, and 3 of their number have been killed doing their jobs in recent times. And so I guess he's been, and obviously it must have been an outcry and things have got to be done. And so Todd's been brought in to kind of raise morale, give some training, make everyone feel better. So it's an incredible context in which to be speaking. And so often the talk is very funny. And so the first thing to say is whenever there is something serious or dark, breaking that moment with something light, it's such a great route to laughter. It's the release. However, what we've seen here is clearly not a funny moment. It's a very dark moment, a very serious moment, acknowledging, you know, what's happened. But what he did here was a setup payoff. So exactly like a joke. So the joke, you say stuff that prepares the ground, and then you say the payoff, which is the funny thing. It's the ha-ha thing. But here we've got the aha thing, but it's set up payoff. You know, he prepares the ground. He says, you know, this next point is the most important one. You know, my life's work is all about this. You know, here's the big takeaway. Really good organizations kill people. And it's a punchline, but it's definitely not a ha-ha punchline. But he's prepared the ground, he's set it up, and there's the payoff. And when you think about your speaking like that, and you think about your serious points like that, what is this serious point that I really want to land? Identify it, call it a payoff. It's not a funny payoff, it's a serious payoff. And then think, okay, how do I build up to it? Slight pause, there it is. And some people do it naturally, but what a lot of people do is the really key thing just gets buried in the middle of a paragraph. So a lot of people would do that in this way. They would go something like, I've been doing this work for 25 years now, and you know, really the most important thing that I've concluded is that really good organizations, well, you know, for all their best intentions, you know, people do still die. And so, you know, my life's work is to kind of, you know, get this message out there, and you know, to wake people up to this fact. And yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. And you probably recognize that speaking style. You know, that's like the default style of speaking. You know, you've got your point, but there it is, it just buried in the middle of a lot of words. Whereas he's identified what the key thing is, prepares the ground, builds up to it, says it, job done. It's set up, payoff.
good, thank you. Let's watch another one that's really useful.
But I'm not done. My whole life's work is about this next button. And Mike started today in a moment of silence for 3 workers. What scares the crap out of me is this.
Yeah. Okay, good. A few, yeah.
Well, let me show you a couple slides because they went to a bunch of work to show this to you. I want to show you my first slide because it'll sort of set the theme for the day. This isn't it. Ignore this slide. Do not look at it. It's not the one. This next slide will sort of set the tone for the rest of the day. Are you ready? Here it comes.
Okay. Do you want to comment on this one? Because a common mistake that presenters make.
Yeah. So when people are working with slides, so here we've got a funny slide, but most often slides aren't funny, and what I'm talking about applies to slides whether they're funny or not. You know, they could be ha-ha, but they could be aha. So what people do inevitably is, you know, they'll have the previous slide and they'll be saying stuff about that. Then they finish their remarks on that slide. Then they'll bring up the next slide and then they'll start talking about it. And we go, well, of course, I mean, what else would you do? Well, here's what else you could do. You could think about the slide that's to come as the payoff that you're building up to. Now, this presupposes that the slide you're going to show is going to have some impact. It's got something interesting on it. What you don't want to bring up is just a huge chunk of text that you're suddenly just going to show to the audience. You know, so you go, this next slide, this is a good slide. It's going to have some impact when I show it. Now, I just want to actually just take a little step into a different world. I work a lot with people in advertising, and advertising creatives, you know, when someone wants an advert for something, they'll approach a number of different agencies and they'll go, we want you to do a campaign for this. And then they'll go around these agencies, and each agency will go, here are the ideas we've come up with for your campaign. And the company will pick one of them, and they've got the business. Now, what they'd have done, you know, they would have designed this image for the advert. And what people would inevitably do is they'll show the image, and then everyone will be looking at it, and they'll go, well, in your brief, you asked us to do this. So as you can see, well, what we did was that, and we decided, oh, well, if you look there, we do this. And so what I always say to these advertising people is, the image is not on the screen yet. You build up to it. You go, your brief said this. You wanted us to do that. We thought about this. And then we thought maybe we could go that way, or should we go that way? Well, this kind of image might work. But in the end, what we came up with was this. Boom. And then you bring it up. And so same thing, you know, you're setting it up. And in that case, the image is the payoff. Then, you know, you might then start commenting on it some more. I heard a really good metaphor for this kind of thinking, a guy called Oliver Double, who's a comedy academic at the University of Kent. In his case, he was talking about a joke. He was saying that a joke is like the jewel, and you want a jewel case, you know, and you present it and you open it and there's the jewel. And same with this, you know, your slide's the jewel and the build up is the case, and then you open it and oh, there we go. And it has way more impact.
I would definitely agree with. I was just going to say, oh, you're on mute, Urbane, but obviously Chris and Urbane and I have caught up a couple of times, and Chris told us about that presentation style the first time we met, and I actually done it a week later. I was presenting at a conference, and I said to him, this next slide is going to be so important. The message that you're going to get in this is going to be a cracker. And so the slide came up, and I basically had a quote saying that we only do this to keep us safe from safety. And it was in relation to like those paper risk assessments, the pre-start risk assessments and stuff. So, but it was really cool, and people really liked that. And I definitely agree with Chris. So that's if I take anything away from this, it's that build up about the slides and sort of really sharing and make sure people are engaged in the next one. That was an excellent tip, and it works.
It's a mistake I used to make as well. And just doing the training again with Chris, you know, just realized really important to set up, you know, the slide. Don't show the slide first, set it up, and the impact is the difference is huge.
Yeah,
really a very good tip. Thank you. So let's watch another one. You know, we keep learning. As you see, it's all based on one video clip from Todd. So if you're bored, you should
Let's
watch
have a quiz. Ready? What's the problem? Anybody want to take? There's 46 pallets on this van. I'm not bragging to you guys, but I took this picture. Okay? And this is not some exotic country. Unless you think Atlanta is exotic, then it totally is, because it's in Atlanta. I stopped to get a Coke. I come out of the Quick Trip place, God's chosen convenience store. The doors go like that, and angels go, oh, and this is parked in front of me. So I took this picture, and I went out to talk to the guy, and he drove away, because I'm pretty sure he thought nothing that guy's got to say I want to hear. What's the problem? Yeah, what's the problem? What's the problem? Height, okay, that's good. Center of gravity's good. Wrong tool. That's the answer. Wrong tool. He took a van to a truck job. Now, I know nothing about this picture, nothing, except for one thing. That guy's a hell of a pallet stacker. If you've ever stacked a pallet, you know you lose interest at about 2. And I'm pretty certain he did not accidentally do this, right? He doesn't turn around and go, crap, I accidentally stacked 46 pallets on a van. And what's amazing is if you look at this and think consequence, you're going to think bad guy. But if you look at it and think context, you're going to think, what kind of system is he in where that outcome makes a difference? Now, I'm about to give you my secret weapon. And I promise you guys, and I don't mean to oversell this, but this changes everything. This will completely change your plant. All I need to do is get you to change your question. Do me a favor. The next time something happens, a near miss, a close call, an operational upset, maybe even an accident, switch your thinking from who failed to what failed.
Okay. Good. Any reflection from the audience? I think it's such. Every time I watch Todd Conklin, like I just like, wow, the guy is just amazing. Just such a nice way to make a point on, don't blame the individual, try to understand the why in such a powerful way. Okay, I'm just conscious of time, so maybe Chris, you want to share some of your insights from this video clip?
Yeah. So one thing we can see is that it's all building up to, change your perspective. Don't ask who failed, ask what failed. So that's what it's all building up to, and that's the payoff of that bit. And so if you look at your presentation, it's going to be in a series of sections, whether it's 5 minutes, 20 minutes, or an hour. There's going to be a number of sections within that, and making sure that each section has a clear payoff. You know what each thing's building to. You say it, move on to the next thing, and having a sense of the whole thing building. Also, of course, he's making a point. He's building up to the point through a story. I took this photo. Now, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Probably he did take the photo, and nowadays it'll be relatively easy to find out that he didn't. But even if he didn't, and it's not like all over the internet, it's going to be smart to say he did. And not because, he'd want the credit, but just because it's just more natural and casual, and it makes it a story. I was getting a Coke, I came out, I saw this, rather than, I don't know if you've seen this photo, I came up, I saw it, found it online, So there's that aspect to it. It's part of a story. Maybe it is completely true as he said it, but it's worth thinking about, how can I make this thing personal, and how can I put it into a story? That's what comedians are doing all the time, whatever it is that they're talking about. And so when you've got to talk about something in safety, it's probably not a question that a lot of safety presenters ask themselves, but the question, how can I make this personal? How can I make it into a story? Those are the things that are going to make it really land with your audience. And also here we've got a bit of a question and answer, and obviously that's clearly great. It's a no-brainer if you're doing a talk. Urban has done it. Ask the audience a question, get people involved. But it can be a bit dry if the question is just knowledge. If it's just, who knows this piece of information? Well, someone does or they don't. Someone says it. I mean, that's not wrong. In fact, that's not a bad thing, actually. I mean, can be a good kind of teaching thing. We know that, rather than you just saying all the information. Who knows? Someone says it, you go, yeah, it's come from her. She knows the facts. Let me put it on the board. So I'm not saying don't do that. But however, there's a big opportunity with question and answer, which is when it's more playful. When there's something kind of fun to chew over, or the answer surprising or counterintuitive, you get people much more engaged than just asking them to remember a fact.
Good. Let's watch another final clip. Okay. I said if you enjoy this session, you can go online to watch the
Let's
full.
have a quiz. Ready? Let's have
The full. Okay, which one is it? Let's see.
What car manufacturers said is our definition of safety has to change. We don't manage accidents. In fact, accidents manage us. What we manage is the car's ability to have an accident. And what happened is they aggressively changed safety in a vehicle. And if you want to look at a good safety story, vehicle safety is an amazing safety story to look at. But here's my challenge. If industrial safety people were in charge of vehicle safety, Volvo could not make that claim. Because if industrial safety people were in charge of vehicle safety, here's what vehicle safety would look like. Before you drive, you got to go to the training center and take the mandatory class that's offered every Tuesday, Don't Wreck. There's 41 slides, and they all say the same thing, don't wreck. Well, some say if you care more, you'll wreck less, right? Some say we're going to observe your wrecking behavior, right? But all of them are going to say don't wreck. And then at the end of the class, you take a test, and if you pass the test, you get a card that says you're a certified not wrecker. And then you get to drive around and not wreck. And once a year, we'll make you take the refresher course on not wrecking, but it's on the web, so you just mouse around and click don't wreck. And everyone will say, we're a wreck-free facility. And we'll put a banner out front that says 100% wreck-free. And we'll put a clock by the driveway that counts the number of wrecks we have, and we will tell people, don't wreck. And they'll drive around until somebody wrecks, and then we'll stand down driving operations. We'll bring everybody into a big room, and some senior manager will get up in front of you and read the procedure on not wrecking louder and slower. What part of not wrecking did you not hear the last time we had this discussion? Right? You're clapping because it's true. What's crazy about that is that's wrong. And the belief that somehow you would choose to wreck, well, that's crazy talk, right? What we do is we don't manage the accident. What we manage is the ability to have the accident. And that shift in thinking is everything.
Okay. Right. I think this is just, for me, this is a mind-blowing, video. I think it's just incredible. I don't know what you think. I mean, just to, to take this analogy of, industrial safety and using the analogy of a car in such a funny way. I mean, it's just, I'm in awe, I must admit. Yeah, so we're short of time. So, Chris, just a few, tips or insights from this video.
So what we have here is a what if. What if industrial safety people were in charge of car safety? And it's bringing two worlds together, and it's mapping, the behavior from one world onto another one. And it's a classic thing, cartoons in Tom and Jerry, they're mapping the behavior of people onto a cat and mouse. It's a really common comedy thing to take something from this context and map it onto that context. It's quite a high level comedy technique. It's probably not something you're just going to do in a presentation tomorrow unless you're already writing comedy and performing comedy. So it's more of a high-end one, but having that attitude of what if, because most of the time, actually even people who are starting out in stand-up, surprisingly, most of the time they just talk about how things as they are. They miss out on the what if things were different. And going into that what if space and speculating and playing around in like a parallel world, there's a lot of fun to be had from that. And of course, he's also commenting on the deficiencies of industrial safety culture, but in this really vivid way by putting it in a different context. So if you've got an annoying manager, you could, among your friends, you might imagine your manager at home, and they're behaving in just the same way with the family, it's you shine a light on it by putting it in another context where suddenly what's ridiculous about it is even more clear, and that's what he's doing there. So, what if and changing context, there's a couple of things to think about.
Okay, good. I'm just conscious of time. I don't know, just one reflection, Steve, that you like to share with the audience very shortly. Very short.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, like just in that previous video, he talked about you laughing because it's true, and that's how memes are made, right? The memes that we see, and you'll get this all the time in the office. You'll get people laughing at stuff, at the banal of office life because it's true. So you'll probably start capturing all this, like some of the things like the rule of three. You'll start to hear that in comedy. You'll start to see the payoff. So yeah, have a listen now. You probably won't hear comedy in quite the same way once you start understanding some of these techniques as well. But yeah, people laugh because it's true.
So I would like to thank you for joining the session today, and special thank to Steve and Chris for joining us today and sharing their insight. I think you picked up quite a few tips. There's some advanced stuff like the last one, the last clip we've seen with Todd. But in terms of setting up, your slide before you show it, thinking about setup, payoff, talking to the audience, telling them that the session is going to be really good, that they're the best audience they are, they're really motivated. They're very simple techniques that you can start applying next time you're doing a presentation. And they will make a big difference, in terms of getting people more engaged. Safety presentation, a lot of time can be really dry. So just by bringing a bit of humor, bringing some of these techniques, you can really increase the level of engagement and have more impact. So thank you very much for joining the session, and thank you, Diane, and special thank you to Martina as well for sharing some photographs with us. Have a great Christmas and New Year, and we'll have another great session in January. So thank you, everybody. Have a great time off, and we'll see you in the new year. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.